Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. This is my weekly compilation ending August 23rd, 2021. Case file number 236, written by Ink Death, Memory Fibers Woven with Time. When I die, I hope to get this one question answered. Yeah, I would definitely choose this one. When I was in 7th grade, you got to choose music or study hall as one of your classes. Each class block was 45 minutes. I chose music, which was held in the gym across the school. It was a day like any other. I distinctly remember the bell going off, telling me to go to my last class. So, because it was music, I left my backpack in classroom and headed to gym. I remember going down the stairs. Then, I remember going down the stairs again. This time, my backpack was packed and I was heading to the bus. Music class was over, and I had somehow gone and gotten back to my classroom and packed my bag. Except I didn't go. My whole life I've had missing time. It's something I'm used to. I wasn't scared about it. I didn't think too much about it either. I was a good kid, straight A's, never missed school or class. When I got to school the next day, my music teacher yelled at me about missing class again. First off, when did I ever miss her class in the first place? And I was there. I had to have been. I launched a whole investigation. None of the teachers or classmates remember seeing me. The nurse, who was at the bottom of the stairs, never saw me come down the stairs. And all the doors are locked from the inside, so you can leave but not get back in. The only way back in is the main entrance, and you have to be let in by the principal or the front desk person. And neither of them saw me. So it hypothetically happened to me twice, and to this day, there is nowhere I could have been without being seen. So where the hell was I? And how did I get my backpack? Case file number 237, written by Diacoptes, Misty Vomits. A friend and I went to a buddy's house for a birthday party. Stayed up playing Halo 2 and hanging out. We all crashed in the basement. Our friend who came with me, and I, got up at the same time. Not like one after the other. We both got up at the exact same time after being asleep for a few hours and rushed to the bathroom. R was more athletic than me, and probably still is, and beat me there. I ran upstairs, barely getting my head over the toilet before puking my guts out. R was doing the same thing in the basement below. I was wearing a wooden cross my grandmother mailed me from Romania. I'm not religious, but I appreciated the gift as I had never met her at that point. The cross somehow became detached from the cord, fell on the tile, and broke into 2 pieces. So we both call our respective mothers and get picked up. By now it's like 3 or 4 a.m. I felt sick until we left the house. Once I was in the car and a few blocks away, felt perfectly fine. R reported the same thing to me that day over MSN Messenger. Felt perfectly fine after a few blocks away. Got the pictures developed a few weeks later. There's a picture of us on the couch rocking some Halo, and the whole room looks like it's filled with mist. Super spooky. I've been looking for the pic for a long time and I can't seem to find it anymore. But every few years, my sister and I search my mom's photo albums for it. Case file number 238, written by Level 100 Gamer, Universe into Universe, from the Loo. I heard lots of stories about when you die, you get sent into an alternate universe where things are more or less the same, except minor details change, such as designs are different, or maybe even everyday things are different, people included. So to get straight to the point, there is a painting in my house which is a black and white tree with all of its leaves on the ground, with branches hanging over a bench. I also have an electric fireplace which is on the main wall. I woke up in the middle of the night to do you-know-what. The pains were terrible, and I remember passing out. I woke up and it was 1:27 a.m. I remember leaving to go to the toilet at 1:23 a.m., so that was pretty strange. And when I finished up in the bathroom and walked out, the painting was different. It had leaves on the tree, and the leaves from the ground were gone. My fireplace had an extended wall behind it too. I have lived in this house for years, so I definitely can tell the difference. I don't really know what to do other than post this. If I tell my family, they'll only laugh at me. Is this a glitch in the Matrix? Case notes, file number 238. Well, this certainly does appear to be a quick story of quantum immortality. You die in one reality, but your consciousness isn't permanently bound to one body. It can move between them, even in other universes, or server realms as I like to think of them. It even sounds like something that happened to me when I was a teenager. I had unfathomable pain in my stomach, which suddenly just ended. Although I didn't notice any huge details off if I did cross over myself back then. You did, and it was a big detail. A painting changing is not something you can miss or forget, nor is it something that a memory fade could explain, like the Mandela effect, remembering things differently from a long time ago. No, this was a painting in your own home. You saw it every day. You can't misremember what it looks like. Case file number 239, written by Rip Psycho, The Great Cookie Imposter. Some backstory. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, but moved to Denver in 2013 with my girlfriend and lived there for about 5.5 years until we had our daughter and decided to move home to be closer to family. We would always come home for major holidays while we lived there, since traveling on our own dime across the country as a 19 and 23-year-old was kind of expensive. We were back at home visiting for Christmas when me, my girlfriend, and 3 buddies from back home, decided to try a new 24-hour cookie place downtown called Insomnia Cookies. Nice name. When we walked in, the place was packed. The line wrapped around the inside of the room from the register to the front door, and we were basically last in line behind about 5 other groups of people. I heard the lady behind the counter yell towards our direction, but at me specifically. "Hey, you forgot to get your tips the other night when you left early." And I didn't respond because obviously she couldn't have been talking to me since I live in Denver, Colorado. She repeated herself again. This time, I responded and apologized because I wasn't the person she was looking for, but jokingly told her I'd take the tips anyways. She looked kind of annoyed and was like, "Right, well, if you want them, I can grab them for you." I told her again that I was just kidding, and I really was not this person who she thought she worked with every single day. So after reassuring her, she again, with kind of an attitude, took our order and we were on our way. We all talked about how weird it was on the way back to my girlfriend's mom's house, but chalked it up to just another look-alike story. Well, fast forward to last night, 5 years later. My girlfriend, who ironically is pregnant again, was craving snickerdoodle cookies from the same place. Around 10 o'clock at night or so, I decided to take the 30-minute trip downtown to grab her favorite cookies. It was Saturday night, so it was like it was last time I went. It was slam-packed to the point where the line ran outside. I finally made it to the front door when I realized I had forgotten my wallet and phone in the car. As I turned around, I frustratingly said out loud, "Damn it!" And to my surprise, a guy was walking up in an Insomnia cookie hat and shirt and said, "What's wrong? Did you forget your wallet or something?" And I replied, "Yeah, my wallet and my freaking phone." And he said, "Damn, well run and grab it. I forget, what do you usually get?" I was super thrown off by this, so I just said, "A half a dozen snickerdoodle cookies?" And to my surprise, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Go grab your stuff and find me when you get here, and I'll make sure they get you some fresh ones made." And then he went inside. The whole walk back to my truck and now to the store, I'm like, what the hell is happening right now? I finally made it back and don't see him, so I just hop back in the long-ass line. After about 10 minutes of standing in a non-moving line, he pops his head out looking for me and yells, "Yo, bro, what are you doing? I told you to come find me. These cookies are getting cold." And then hands the cookies to me, shakes my hand and tells me it's good to see me and you'll see me again soon. So again, I'm like, what the bonkers hell is going on right now? He walks around the corner and I take a $20 bill out and walk to the front of the line to the lady at the register. I hold up my $20 and ask, how much do I owe for these? And she said, "What do you mean? You heard him. You're good to go. I'll see you again soon." I just turned around and walked out, still in shock about who the hell they think I am, but apparently I have a good look-alike or something. Good enough to get me someone else's tips and a free half-dozen cookies. Or is something more afoot? Case file number 240, written by SM127, Of Death and the Stroke of a Pen. In college, I took a hard news, soft news journalism class where one of the assignments was to write an obituary for one of my grandparents. The professor told us to write it on a deceased grandparent, but if all of your grandparents were still alive, we had to choose one. In my case, all of my grandparents were alive. I procrastinated actually doing the assignment until the night before it was due because it seemed like a morbid assignment, especially since all of my grandparents were still alive. Scramming for an easy grandparent to write about, I gave my mom a call and asked her for some basic biographical information about my maternal grandfather. As we were talking about my grandpa's career, my mom couldn't recall the name of one of the companies he worked at. She lectured me about waiting until the last minute to write the assignment because it was late, like 10:30 p.m., my grandpa's time. However, she said that she would give him a call to see if he was still awake and be able to answer that question once my assignment was due the following morning. When my mom called my grandma answered the phone in a panic. My grandma frantically explained that the paramedics had just arrived and were performing CPR on my grandpa because he had stopped breathing and lost consciousness. My mom was able to stay on the phone with my grandma until they took my grandpa to the hospital, where he sadly was declared dead. At the time my mom and I had been talking on the phone about my grandpa's obituary, he was actually dying. His death was entirely unexpected. Although he was in his 80s, he was the healthiest of my grandparents at the time. We ended up using the obituary I wrote for that assignment writing as his actual obituary. Still freaks me out when I think about the timing. Case file number 241, written by Anon 888872. A step through church and time. Alright, so this super weird thing happened to me and my friend the other day. I'm pretty sure it was a time slip, but who knows. So we're walking in Pittsburgh, a pretty big city, and we rounded a corner to walk to a place I had never seen before. It was a little strip of land in between two industrial/city looking vibes with a forest and a church. It was a strip of forest that offered a nice relief compared to the big concrete buildings. Anyway, we walked by this pretty church and saw a sign in front of the church that said, "Celebrating our 80th anniversary." We thought nothing of this. But all of a sudden, we both agreed that the atmosphere just felt, for lack of a better word, off. A car drove past us, but it looked really old, and everything around us was super silent. The car didn't make any noise. Whatever, we decided to turn back and start to leave the church. We walked to the staircase to leave the little valley the church was in, where the church was basically out of view. We started walking up the stairs when I saw the anniversary poster in front of the church and had to do a double take. The sign now said, "Celebrating our 150th anniversary," and the atmosphere wasn't quiet or eerie anymore. I said to my friend, "Did that just change from 80 to 150? And she agreed that she saw the same thing. We went back down the stairs to double check we weren't seeing things incorrectly, but the sign still said 150. Still not really sure what happened or why. But it was freaky. Update. I found the church. Okay, forest was a bit of an overstatement, but behind the church they had to not cut down the trees, and compared to the rest of the city, it looked like a forest in my memory. Also, I now have more interesting facts. I looked up the church and it turns out it is 103 years old. I went back to the text I sent the day of the incident, and it turns out I got my days wrong in my recollection. I had seen the sign change from 50 to 90. I think this is even weirder, given that it was 103rd anniversary, not 90. Second, it turns out the school right by it, Carlow University, is trying to demolish the church. I wonder if this was kind of the spirit or universe of the church crying for help. The church is called St. Agnes Center, and I've attached a text message from that day and a link to the article that they are tearing down the church. I've lived in Pennsylvania my whole life, and I can definitely say I've always believed in spirits and supernatural stuff, due to all the weird crap and vibes I've grown up with. Case file number 242, written by Caramel Watermelon. Mom's Glitchy Powers. Family has a pet bird, Kiki, and for the last several weeks, or maybe months, I haven't brought Kiki down to hang out in my room because I don't have a stand for her. She's always in the upstairs room or the porch, and never really down with me in the basement. So finally today, I texted my mom because she wasn't home if we have any playstands for Kiki, and she says we have the black playstand in the cellar. I look around all over for it, which isn't much to scan over because it's a small area and the playstand is very big. I made sure that it was 100% not there because I just knew it would be there when my mom came home. I felt like taking a video on my phone and sending it to her as proof. I really wish I had. My mom came downstairs 10 minutes ago and is like, "It's right here." And internally I died, but externally I tried playing it off cool. I tried convincing her that it was 100% not there earlier. I believe she thinks I'm going crazy. I go in and out of the cellar part about probably 5 times a day. I'm constantly going in there to get to the freezer, and the playstand is right next to the freezer. So if it was down there all along, then I must have missed it hundreds of times, and also again today before texting her. I had a strong feeling it would just reappear, because that is something that always happens. Searching for something, asking your mom for help to find it, and then it mysteriously appears where you checked prior. But I figured that this wouldn't be the case this time because the playstand is just so freaking big. Boy, was I wrong. To add to this, I've also been seeing big bright white orbs zipping across my room. It has happened about 3 times in the past 2 days, and I've never had anything like this happen before. If you're enjoying this video, consider giving it a like. Now on to the next story. Bonus file, written by Hunt Fiona 357. My son, the ghost. There is no other way that I know to say it, because it's just what it is. My son, who passed in 2018, has subtly been making his presence known. He has not appeared in spectral form, but he can definitely move things. I've been struggling with my son's death, as any mother would. He ended his life at 15 years old. But in recent months, I found enjoyment in soap making, of all things. It's a great distraction. Over the last couple of years, there have been things that have happened that give me no doubt of an afterlife, and I'm in awe and wonder. My son's birthday is April 1st. Since his passing, no family member has done anything April Foolsy. It's a solemn day. This year, I went to bed on April 1st, thinking of my son, but I also had soap on my mind. What to make next, am I doing the right thing, etc. When I woke up the next morning, the rest of the household was still sleeping. I then went to the kitchen. The atmosphere felt very peaceful, and I felt the need/urge to go look at my soaps curing on the racks. When I went into my soap room, lying right in the middle of the floor was a bar of soap. This was just so odd. Who put it there? Why? It had no dents, it didn't fall off the rack, which was in a closet about 5 feet away. My husband, older son, and daughter all said they didn't do it, and they were as perplexed as I was. My first thought was that my late son did it. I think he has been easing his way into letting us know that he's still here, in spirit. He's been doing it subtly, so as to not scare us. Previously, my husband one night came to our room and said, "Did you see that?" I hadn't. He said that the flashlight turned on by itself. This is a very heavy-duty flashlight that requires a deep push on the button to turn it on. This was when I thought to myself that my son is trying to make his presence known without terrifying us. My son's father lives with my brother. It wasn't until last month that I went to their house to tell them about this incident. The dad said when he was walking down the stairs a few weeks prior, a dime went rolling past him with nobody else in the area. Then, as I was recounting my story to them, we heard a noise of something falling to the floor from the kitchen table. A flat, square piece of cereal had moved from the table to the floor. I said, "See?" As if it was something normal, but my mind is still numb at all the events. Yay! There is an afterlife, but we know nothing about it until we get there, on natural terms. Case file number 243, written by Celestial Slytherin, The Spirit of a Glitch. I, 21 female, was driving down the highway to run some errands in the city. I was alone in my car, listening to the radio. First, I felt a headache and I thought about driving to the rest place to drink some water, but I was in a hurry, so I decided to drive straight to the city. I remember passing a billboard and I was completely alone on the highway. I live in Europe, so driving alone on a highway isn't exactly common, but then and there I was alone, no car or truck in sight. I thought it was strange, but I drove for another kilometer or so, I believe, when someone said, "Celestial Slytherin," step on the brakes. I turned my head and I saw a girl, similar to me but with a few distinctive differences, and she was basically looking at me like I'm mad, and then she said again something like, "Are you deaf? Step on the freaking brakes or Grandpa's gonna be super mad." I said something in the lines of, "Okay, geez," and slammed my brakes, and in that moment I was back on a busy highway, only I wasn't driving because there was an accident, which is why other drivers had to move to create space for first responders. So I found myself sitting in my car and her sighing in relief and laughing and saying something like, "Don't scare me like that again," and then she disappeared. I realized that I was really close to the rear of the car in front of me and that the man inside was looking at me like I was nuts, so I apologized because, as I believe, I almost crashed into him. I was probably in shock, so it didn't occur to me to call my mom or dad, but when I came home, I told her the story and didn't really think much about it. Still don't know why. But she went pale, and I mean pale. She told me that when she was still pregnant with me, she always had a feeling she was carrying twins, especially because twins are really common on my dad's side of the family. My uncles are twins, so is my grandmother. And even though the doctors always said she was only carrying one kid, she always said she felt two. I know that this event wasn't a vision, nor did I just imagine it. I remember it fully. I was fully conscious. I basically just accepted her in my passenger seat. I vividly remember all the differences between us, and even the clothes she wore. She also mentioned my already deceased grandfather, who was always very concerned when anyone in our family went on a highway. I have two theories. Either I passed, for a moment, to an alternate universe where I have a twin sister, or my mom was actually pregnant with twins, but my sister passed very early in the womb, and I somehow absorbed her or something. And please don't make fun of me for not exactly being a medical expert. Case file number 244, written by Hyraeth O. Glitch of Nature. We've been living here for 4 years, and I'm sure this tree was not there before. It's my favorite corner of the backyard because there's a snake that usually hides in the bush that is in that corner. I go there often to see the snake. That tree was never there. There was just a bush. Today I went there again. I go there every day. And the bush is there, but a big tree is there too, right next to the bush. I thought my parents somehow bought that tree and planted it there, although I found it weird because it's a huge tree. So I asked them how they got the tree, and they looked at me all confused and said, "It's always been there." They said it was already there when we moved in. There's absolutely no way. I've been here for 4 years and there's no way I didn't see this tree. I go there every day. I asked my brothers too and they all told me that the tree was always there. What the hell is going on? Case file number 245, written by Chaos Destroyer 01. The Shirt of Universes. I spent the last few days, almost a week, at my best friend's place, and the first night I was there, I was wearing one of my band shirts that I really like. She even made a joke about it, so I for sure know that she saw me wearing it. Anyway, later I take it off to sleep because I was getting too hot in the spare room, and when I wake up in the morning, it isn't on top of the desk where I thought I put it. I was like, alright, whatever, I misplace things all the time. It'll crop up later. Over the next few days, I kept looking for it, but I never saw it, nor did she. But here it is. Today I came home from her place, and it's literally folded sitting on top of my bed, along with the spare socks and boxers I brought with me that I also thought I lost. I couldn't even process it for a second, and had to tell my brother about it. Any rational suggestion he brought up never happened. I'm half convinced everything is a simulation at this point. Case file number 246, written by King Nightingale. A trick of the mind on this dark night? I went over to a friend from work's place. I live in Wisconsin, and for the past few days we've had a lot of crazy thunderstorms and rain rolling through. And this night was the craziest it got. The roads were flooded, lightning and thunder constantly crackling in the sky. Driving over had me feeling a little nervous, and normally I never feel worried about how I drive in storms, but it was extra windy and pouring rain. Anyway, I make it to my friend, John's, apartment, and as I get out of my car, there was a deafeningly loud thunderclap overhead, as if Thor himself had just landed in the backyard. I approached the door to the apartment, to which my buddy is already standing at the foot of the dark stairwell leading to his apartment. "Our power's out," he tells me. I walk in and go upstairs with him into their apartment. As I enter the room, it's obviously pretty dark, but not pitch black. It was still 8 p.m. around this time, and some light was creeping in from their balcony sliding door. I made note that Patrick, another coworker who lives with my buddy, was sitting on the couch by this window, along with another silhouette of a person who I assumed was his brother, who had been staying with them for a little while. Both of them turned their heads towards me when I entered, but didn't say anything. I began feeling a nervous panic as I turned to put the beer I had brought over in the fridge. I, for some reason, felt weird energy in the living room around the corner where Patrick and his brother were sitting. John said something like, "You can go into the living room, you don't have to hang back here." And I turned the corner, greeted Patrick, and was going to greet his brother until I noticed the other silhouette I saw was now gone. Now it was just Patrick on the couch. I don't let this freak me out now. I waited a good 15 to 30 minutes before saying, "Hey, weren't there 4 of us in here?" To which John and Patrick both said, "No." I then mentioned that I thought I saw Patrick's brother sitting on the couch next to him, to which Patrick explains his brother left 2 days ago. So what the hell did I see turn its head to look at me enter? Why was it sitting next to Patrick? Was this just my mind filling in the blanks because I assumed his brother was over, and it was dark enough that my mind put an imaginary person next to Patrick? What happened? Bonus file, written by Dr. Breen. Something followed me home from vacation. I need some help identifying whatever the hell is here with me. I just got back from a week-long vacation last night, and the same activity from the house I was staying in is going on at my apartment. I apologize in advance for any incoherence in what I say, because I haven't gotten much sleep last week. The house we stayed in was gorgeous, and since my entire extended family was staying there, 18 people, it was also absolutely massive. It was split into 2 parts, the old side of the house, roughly just a basement studio and 3 bedrooms upstairs, and the newer side. I'm not going to go into much detail about the newer side, as no paranormal activity took place there, but it was truly a gorgeous house. I shared a room with my girlfriend, and since we were the last to arrive, we got the worst room in the house. Not only did we get the smallest room in the house, it was about 10 feet by 10 feet. It was also on the old side of the house, directly in front of the basement stairs. As I had been driving for 6 hours that day, I was pretty tired, so I said hello to everyone and quickly got into bed to go to sleep. It was around 11 p.m. when my girlfriend and I got into bed. She's lucky in the sense that she can fall asleep just about anywhere in 5 minutes flat, so she was asleep within seconds. I had a weird, uneasy feeling in my chest. Not necessarily a scary feeling, just that annoying alert feeling you get when you feel like something is watching you. To help ease myself, I hopped right down into a YouTube rabbit hole. About an hour into my journey, I could tell that my girlfriend was having a nightmare, so I put my hand on her arm to gently wake her up. But as soon as I touched her, she bolted awake screaming, mumbled, "The ghost," and immediately went back to sleep. I had just started to get tired, and safe to say, I was sufficiently creeped out at this point, so back down the rabbit hole I went. About 2 hours went by when my girlfriend woke up screaming again, saying, "The footsteps are close," and passed out immediately. I then decided I'm not going to sleep that night, and went right back to YouTube. Another hour passes and I see my girlfriend sit up in bed, but she's still asleep. She moved so she was sitting on the edge of the bed and started having a conversation with the corner of the room. She eventually laid back down, but not before I was absolutely terrified. Activity dies down after the first night, usually just creaks on the floor or knocks on the wall/door. The only other standout event besides movement around the room happened on the second to last night when something sat down on the edge of my bed. My first thought was that my cat jumped onto the bed, but I remembered I wasn't at my apartment and sat up just in time to see the indentation lift up off the edge of the bed. It couldn't have been my girlfriend, as she was on the opposite side of the bed and nowhere near where the indentation happened. Also, the bed I was staying in was firm as a rock, so it was challenging to push that far down into it. Fast forward one more sleepless night, and I'm on my way home. After a long day of driving, I got back and settled down with some Netflix. My girlfriend had plans to go hang out with her friends, so she was out for most of the night. I thought I'd finally get a break from the spooky stuff when my dog and cat both started tracking something around my apartment. The way their heads were moving, whatever they saw was moving fast. Now I've seen them track bugs before, but neither of them really focus on it too much. They usually just huff and ignore it, but this was different. Poppy, my dog, started growling when whatever it was moved into the corner of the room. My cat Anna jumped up right next to me on the couch while Poppy growled at the corner and started to slowly back up towards me. After a full week of crap like this, I wasn't even scared anymore. Just pissed off and tired because it likes to keep me from falling asleep, whatever it is. Poppy and Anna both track the thing moving out of the corner towards us, so she starts barking like crazy. After I got her to stop barking, I heard a growl come from the center of the room. It was pretty high-pitched, like a small dog or a girl. Judging by where my pets were tracking, it looked like it was very short, very fast, and could jump up on the table on counters. I stood up, stared in its general direction, and said, "Please leave." I got a huge wave of chills and goosebumps. In places I didn't even know I could get goosebumps, but I said it again, much louder and more stern this time, while opening my front door to let it out. "Please leave." Whatever it was got really upset. It didn't do anything, but I could feel a lot of anger. My pets tracked it moving towards a door, so I thought I was in the clear. About 2 minutes later, my dog starts barking at the corner of the room where the door is, while my cat is on full alert, staring at the same place. At this point, I just give up and hope it just leaves me alone, since it hasn't been violent yet, just annoying. Poppy eventually fell asleep at my feet, and Anna had run into the other room, occasionally poking her head out of the door to look in and immediately spring back into the room. I just gave up on dealing with it at this point. I put my earbuds in to block out the knocks on the walls and watched some YouTube. I decided to stay up until my girlfriend got back to let her know what was happening, but whatever it was, took this as an opportunity to mess with me. I was laying on my couch and kept feeling something poking me every 5 minutes. Not hard, just constant pokes on my arms and legs and feet. After this went on for a while, it pulled up on my nostrils. Again, I just ignored it because I learned it gets worse if I engage with it. Whenever something like this would happen, I could feel the apartment get much colder, despite my thermostat saying it was 72 degrees. After hours of knocking, poking, pulling, and the occasional arm brush, my girlfriend finally got home. The second she got through the door, I could tell that whatever it was had left, as I had no uneasy feeling and there were no more weird noises, so I had one of the most restful nights I've had in over a week. I don't know if it's gone for good or if it will come back tonight. Other than the growl and the short but overwhelming sense of anger, it hasn't been violent or disturbing, just really annoying. Any help on how to identify or safely communicate with it would be greatly appreciated. Edit. It has only been a couple of hours since I posted this, but activity has been a little higher since. For starters, I am running a fever out of the blue. My temp was 98.8 this morning. I checked because I had a fever the previous night, and it has risen again to 101.3 in only 15 minutes. On top of this, the knocking and rustling noises around the apartment have started up again. I feel absolutely drained. It's even hard to keep my eyes open despite a good night's rest yesterday. The main point of this post is for advice and help on how to deal with this thing. Thank you to anyone who can help. Update. Luckily, there has been no new activity since a couple of nights ago. Not even an unsettling feeling. My girlfriend and I have been home pretty much consistently the past day, and things seem to only pick up when I'm alone in the apartment. Normally I wouldn't be worried, but I have to take the next couple of days off of work, and my girlfriend is leaving for a beach trip for the next couple of days, so I will be alone. More updates to come. Case file number 247, written by From Adur to Kungur. The sands of time fall slower in Moscow. I am a French language teacher in Russia, an expat, and due to that, I should travel at least once a year to Moscow for documents. Embassy bureaucracy, what can you do? And because I live in a city that's 2,000 kilometers far from Moscow, I use the planes each and every time. Well now, let's jump to the fun part. The time zone in Moscow is a 2-hour difference. I flew to Moscow with my wife and landed safely. I went to the embassy at 9 a.m. and did my things, and by 10 a.m. I was already finished. Now we have the whole day to visit Moscow before our flight back, which will be at 11 p.m. First we visited Lenin Library, Undergrounds, Kremlin Gardens, the Cathedral, the Red Square, by foot. And when I looked at the time, I was shocked. It's 11 a.m., which means this whole excursion took 1 hour. And I was so sure it took more because for those who don't know, Moscow is a gigantic city, and we moved between places by foot. No taxi, no bus, just by foot. I thought that maybe it's just because of the time zone difference, and I felt a little tired after the flight. But no, my watch and phone were automatically updated when we got to Moscow. So we decided to find a place to eat, and we were looking around here and there. Then we found a good spot. We settled down and had lunch, took a tour around the mall and commercial centers, bought souvenirs, took coffee and just a few cigarettes. Then I took a look at my phone. What the hell? It's 11:30 a.m., just 30 minutes gone by? My wife noticed it too, and we felt a little weird. We're already tired walking around places, and time is literally not moving or moving slowly. I suggested to sit at an open-air cafe and just waste some time until 7 p.m. to go back to the airport. We sat down and took my 5th or 6th coffee that day. I talked to my wife about anything and everything. Time goes and felt that we minimum sat there for 2 hours. But no, it was only 12. Another 30 minutes. I practically lost it. And to not make the text long and boring, we kept moving between cafes and museums on this infinite day. And finally, when 7 p.m. hit, I said, for God's sake, finally. It really felt like forever, and when I checked my phone's step counter, it was 400% more than my expected number. We walked around 15 kilometers around the city center, and then I understood that something was unusual about that trip, because when I got back to my city, the time was running like usual. I could feel how the time was going faster than in Moscow. What do you think? Case file number 248, written by MaxPot46. Let's play Extra-Dimensional Portal Ball. I've never had any kind of paranormal or UFO experience, that I know of, but I have experienced one extremely jarring glitch in the Matrix. I was in my apartment and bouncing a blue racquetball off the floor super hard, so that I would bounce up to the ceiling and back down to the floor. I was just playing a silly game where I was trying to get it to bounce back and forth as many times as possible. The ceiling was a flat, white painted ceiling with literally no fixtures of any kind on it. On one of the bounces, the ball hit the floor, bounced up to the ceiling, and sank right into it, disappearing. Right before my very eyes. I was seriously shocked. I thought that maybe I'd blacked out for a second or something. But I looked around immediately on the floor and didn't see the ball anywhere, which should have been easy, because it still had a ton of kinetic force in it and should have been still bouncing or rolling. I tore the area apart looking, but I couldn't find the ball. Then, about 30 minutes later, my wife got home, and when she opened the door to our apartment, I saw the ball fall out of the ceiling behind her in the hallway. I immediately ran out there, and yep, there it was. Just bouncing and rolling down the hall like it had fallen out of the ceiling about 20 yards away from where I saw it disappear. I remember this extremely vividly, both the sensory visual experience of seeing it disappear into the ceiling and the emotional shock I was experiencing in that moment, as well as when it reappeared out in the hall. It's what got me to start seriously considering simulation theory, and now I'm fairly convinced that we're living in one. Case notes, file number 248. Well, this is my jam, Mr. MaxPot. 2 balls lost in my life, although none came back. I'm not going crazy, nor are you, I think. What the hell is right? Why balls, too? It seems like the most common object to disappear are balls and socks. Your account, though, is very unique in the ball somehow merging with other matter, almost like it phased through the ceiling, then it bounced around in the interiors of the ceiling towards the door entrance. When your wife came home, it sort of phased back through the ceiling and then fell down. I wonder if this is a glimpse behind the scenes for disappearing object phenomena. A matter phasing glitch? Case file number 249, written by McKay of Spades. Husband out of place at night. Every night I go to bed about 2 hours before my husband. I always wake up when he comes into the room. One night he was gaming with a friend, and it was hours later. I heard him sneak into the room and crawl across the floor so he could pop up and scare me. I felt the floor kind of shake and felt him bump clumsily against the side of the bed in the dark. I held out my hand and asked him not to scare me. I was already scared enough and begged him to just take my hand and come to bed. I couldn't see anything in the room, but knew he was there and just waited for him to jump up so I could move on and go back to sleep. That's when I heard him talking to his friend in the other room. I was frozen. I know there's sleep paralysis or lucid dreaming or something that explains this, but I would have sworn on my son's life that someone had crawled across the floor and jostled the bed. Eventually, I worked out the fear enough to grab my phone and text my husband to come in and turn on the lights and check under the bed. But holy crap, it boggles me how real it felt. Bonus file, written by Dr. Breen. According to my sleepwalking girlfriend, there are men moving under the bed. This is a continuation from the first part. While the last couple of days were pretty silent, last night was terrible. I had that unsettling feeling for most of the night before we went to bed, so I knew something was going to happen. When we were in bed, before we went to sleep, my girlfriend joked around that she was possessed by a demon and kept making this really creepy grin, like the one where you're smiling ear to ear, but your eyes are wide open. I could tell she was joking, but still a little creepy. After that, she told me the ghost in her dreams said I was cheating on her. I definitely am not. We've been dating for 3 years and I would never do that to her, so apparently this ghost is a homewrecker. While that's not necessarily creepy, just annoying that a ghost is trying to break us up, things picked up when she went to sleep. It started with this loud booming sound, sort of like a big truck driving by your window with the rhythmic beat of the engine. At first, that's what I thought it was. The window in our bedroom is right over the street, where it's not rare for a big truck to drive by. But this booming never stopped. There wasn't a single point where this noise was coming from. No matter where I looked, the volume of the boom never changed. Throughout the entire night, it never stopped, never got louder, never changed rhythm, just kept beating and beating and beating. Normally, I would easily be able to write this off and just fall asleep, but about 30 minutes after my girlfriend fell asleep, she started talking again. At first, she looked like she was having a pleasant conversation. She held out her hand for what looked like a handshake and started giggling. After that, I could hear her bring up my name in the incoherence of her sleep, so I thought, maybe she's talking to me in her dream. Nope. After a little more of the conversation went on, she looked at me with her eyes open and said, "We're talking about you," and started giggling and then passed right back out. This creeped me out a lot, reminding me of the first night at the lake house. After such a spook, there was only one thing I could do: fall deep into a YouTube rabbit hole. I put my AirPods in. I could still hear the booming, but a little more muffled now, and pulled up a video. About another half hour goes by and my girlfriend is talking again. This conversation seems a little more serious as she's not giggling and her tone changed. After about a minute of talking, she sits up in bed and does just about the worst thing I could imagine. She crawls over to my side of the bed, crouches down on the floor, points under the bed, looks directly in my eyes and says, "There's men moving around under there." She just got back into bed and fell asleep like nothing happened. About an inch away from needing to change my pajama pants, I shake her awake and say, "What did you mean by that?" She looked really confused and said she had no clue what I was talking about. I said, "Please tell me you're joking. You don't remember a thing? You just pointed under the bed and said there are men moving under there." She immediately looks terrified and says, "I have no clue what you're talking about. Quit scaring me." It took a bit longer for her to fall asleep after that, and I turned my phone flashlight on for the remainder of the night. Not much happened after that. There was another point where she held her hand out for a handshake and mumbled something, but no conversation that time. She left at about 7:30 a.m. this morning, but after saying goodbye, I immediately got back in bed and passed out. When I woke up again around 10:30, I felt this completely overwhelming sadness that had me on the verge of tears. Even in that moment when you first wake up and you can't remember a single thing about your day, I still felt that sadness. Of course, I love and miss my girlfriend with all of my heart, but she was only going to be gone for a couple of days, and even when we would take separate trips, neither of us would get this world-ending feeling. It genuinely felt like the world had gone gray and the only thing I could do was cry. Luckily, I was able to push through this feeling and take my dog out to potty. Not even 30 seconds of being outside and the feeling was completely gone. Again, I miss my girlfriend a lot and still feel that, but not to the point of mental breakdown. It seems like activity is picking up again, and the men moving under the bed definitely seem to miss my girlfriend too, seeing as they're already trying to break us up, and now I'm alone in the apartment with them, and I'm pretty terrified. I might go get some sage to smudge the apartment later today.